Hello, I'm back again, and here I am with another really super short chapter. I, yeah, it's 3 pages, well, 4 pages technically. It's very very short, but I think you'll appreciate this because original air date is October 13th, Friday the 13th, and we're also going to be reading chapter 13 on October 13th. um, yeah, so there's that. For those of you who are just tuning in, I am currently reading a manuscript that my dad wrote back in 1982. This is a different version from the one that I published, which was his 1977 version. It's a fantasy novel, and today I'm going to be reading chapter 13. It's going to be really short, so I might just talk a little bit after the video because it's super short. Or maybe I'll enunciate or act it out. I don't know. Something. Anyway, without further ado, I will launch right into it after a fashion. Okay, chapter 13. Aventir. Long it had held the Hygerians at bay. Many of their best men had died in taking it, and it was a symbol of their might. Within Aventir, they expected to emulate the feat of Arden's household, keeping back the Asbalnians until time should it do its inevitable damage to their cause, until Hygerians should come once more, pour across the mountains, destroying the fragile freedom of Asbaln. Yet in one night of wild swords, it was swept away. The Hygerian War by Randall of Aventir. They came at last to the mound in the swamp. They took all the weapons stored within, slung in litters of improvised from cloaks, and descended into the dark tunnel. Some attempt had been made to keep the dampness out by flooring it with stone, but in the lower sections they waded through water to their knees. There was room for only one man at a time, which concerned Rorik. If there happened to be anyone in the castle storeroom when the tunnel entered the castle, one strong man could hold the entrance of the tunnel for long enough that the alarm could be raised. Indeed, the Guardian's warriors might simply fall one at a time as they entered the castle. As soon as they opened the door, Rorik and the foremost 5 rushed out, swords ready, falling into a semicircle. The room was empty, save for what was stored there. Rorik called his captains and undercaptains to him, and, kneeling in the dust, sketched out a plan of the immediately important areas of the castle, assigning groups of men for particular corridors to hold the way for them to bring their comrades out of the dungeons. Standing then, he brushed the dust from his hands and said, "Come now at last the Guardian's line, in secret to his forefathers' hall, by hidden ways to midst of foes, and by the sword will stand or fall." Rorik led them to the dungeons, with small groups breaking off to guard certain corridors. They met no one. Finally, at the last corner, they heard the sound of voices speaking Hygerian. A careful look showed 5 men leaning on spears, telling stories. Rorik made some quick signs, and then led 10 men around the corner in a rush. The guards had no time to give an alarm. Most of the men had been packed into the larger dungeon. Rorik and his group passed out what spare arms they had brought, then retraced their steps. When they returned to the storeroom, Rorik told the free prisoners, "Our task here is not merely to set you free, but to open the gates and hold them open for Connell and the war host. Arm yourselves here, and when you have done that, come out to join us at the gates." Outside, when they had marked the sentries nearest the gates, archers were assigned to deal with these. Rourke gave the signal, and they rushed for the gate. As the warriors began to open the gates, the sentries were already falling to arrows. It was not possible to deal with them all silently, but that had been expected. The warriors were turned about, facing inward in a semicircle around the gates. 5 flaming arrows went up into the air, and Rourke muttered, "The signal, if Connell is out there to see it." Then he was busy again, for it occurred to him the wall above the gate must be taken and held. He called to Baron, who assigned some men for that purpose. After that, for a while, all was quiet. However, soon the prince might or might not arrive. Rourke was grateful for every instant granted them before the Hygerians were prepared to make an attack on them. Before the first Hygerian assaults came, the last of the warriors were armed and outside. It was a near enough thing that the last of them were just taking places when the first Hygerian javelins flew. But neither were the bows of Azbalin idle. Rourke had seen to it that every man of his force who could be trusted to shoot an arrow elsewhere than into his own foot was armed with a bow. Few of the archers were skilled, but even unskilled bowmen might hit a target if it is near enough. The first attack was by a mere 50, probably 50 who were on sentry duty. In the usual Hygerian manner, they charged without pausing to assess the situation. The attack failed, of course, but the warriors took their first casualties. The second attack was a little longer in coming, and a little better thought out. There were more men, but the arrows of the warriors were flying even before they were near enough to make their javelins count. They charged home, though, and only the skill of the warriors and their fighting ferocity enabled them to hold. The foe at last drew back, having suffered badly. The warriors suffered too, but they were now given some respite. The Hygerians, who first thought had been that the Azbalinians were coming over the walls, were encouraged in that delusion by the fact that the Azbalinians were shooting arrows at them from over the gate. This allowed some time for the Azbalinians, while the barbarians sorted out the confusion in which they found themselves. There was still no sign of Connell and the war host. He looked around at his men. They were standing firm and determined, and if Connell never came, they would be willing to die where they stood. Okay. Like I said, it was really, really short. It was only a few pages long, so that was it. Yeah, if you feel like it feels unfinished to you, it feels unfinished to me too. I still need to compare it to the other story, like to the other version, because this sounds quite a bit different. But I'm going to compare the two of them, go over them in detail, pardon me, and then see if I'm going to merge them or do a special edition of this one, or yeah, it's either going to be a special edition that'll be like, a one-off kind of thing, or else it'll be me merging the two of them and creating an updated version. I don't know how I feel. I think I'm halfway. I don't know where I'm at. Like, I didn't bother checking to see how many chapters were in here before I started, so that's on me, really. But I'm gonna say almost halfway done. Almost halfway done. Sure. Almost halfway done. 13. There's probably only about 30 chapters, maybe. I think. Who knows? I mean, I could check. But that sounds like work. And then you and I can both be pleasantly surprised when we find out, oh wait, this is the last chapter. And then I'll let everybody know. But it's not the last chapter. We're only halfway done. Will Connell ride there and save them? find out next time. That'll be on Monday. Around the same time, somewhere between 4:30, no, quarter to 5, 5 o'clock. Anywhere in that area. Someday I will have a schedule, but that's not this time. This time is my special streaming where I'm just testing everything out. Tonight I'm going to double check and see if that YouTube's actually doing audio, because it wasn't doing audio before. So I could just be talking and there could be just no sound at all, in which case that's unfortunate. And then I have to rejigger some things. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's okay. Until then, I will talk to you guys all on Monday. Again, sorry this is short. I think the next one's also kind of short too. But I'll talk to you Monday. Have a good night.